The poet is describing the earth spaces through which the princess is proceeding. This spirit, stumbling in the fields of sense, this creature, bruised in the mortar of the days, could find in her broad spaces of release. The earth spirit, which fumbles in the fields of the senses and which is bruised, hurt in the clang of the human days, mortar, that is the action of the stone, the hardness, could find in these spaces of earth broad spaces of release, because there was no human habitation as such, and things were still virgin lands. Not yet was the world all occupied by care. There was no care, no anxiety to spoil things in this region. The bosom of our mother kept for us still our Mother Earth. It kept here for us humans her austere regions and her musing depths. Austere, not crowded with the objects of senses, and her musing depths, contemplative vibrations, her impersonal reaches, lonely and inspired. There was an impersonal air, not crowded, not infected by personalities, and yet not inert. It was inspired. There was an elevation of consciousness, and the mightinesses of her rapture haunts. There was an unusual rapture, feeling of joy, which had its own greatness. Muse-lipped, she nursed her symbol mysteries. Here there is an imagery. The earth is compared to a priestess in the old mysteries of Egypt, Greece, the Mediterranean countries. Muse-lipped, she had muse poetry on her lips. She nursed, cherished, and developed her symbol mysteries. Mysteries are particular religious rituals and guarded for her pure-eyed sacraments. Sacraments are part of rituals, things being made sacred and offered to the gods. And for these pure-eyed sacraments, which other people should not see, which the public shall not look at, she guarded for these pure-eyed sacraments the valley clefts between her breasts of joy. That is, she reserved her most intimate portions for these sacraments to God. Her mountain altars for the fires of dawn, The peaks of the mountains look like altars where fires are lit. Now the fires are the fires of dawn. When the sun rises, his distant rays, when they reach the peak of the mountains, they look reddish, and they are called fires of the dawn. Her mountain altars for the fires of the dawn, and nuptial beaches where the ocean couched, and the beaches of this earth where it touched the ocean. Nuptial, that is, these what may be called the consummations of the wedding, that is intimacies. Nuptial beaches, he is completing the imagery. First he says the valley clefts between her breasts of joy, and nuptial beaches where the ocean couched, where the ocean slept, and the huge chanting of our prophet woods. The woods are the prophets. So in these mysteries, in these ceremonies, the woods, the wind that flows through the trees is the chanting. The forests are the priests. Fields had she of her solitary mirth. It was not that she was all that serious. There were fields where she had mirth, happiness, joy, solitary, alone, she could enjoy herself. Plains hushed and happy in the embrace of light. The embrace is of light from above. Alone with the cry of birds and hue of flowers. She is enjoying herself, the earth goddess, the earth being, with the cry of birds and the hue of flowers, the shades of colors of flowers, and wildernesses of wonder lit by her moons. There were wildernesses, deserted areas, full of wonder, and they were lit by the moons. And grey, sere evenings, kindling with the stars. Evenings are seers. Seers are those who see beyond the physical vision. And evenings are described as seers, kindling with the stars. The stars are kindling the evenings, and dim movement in the night's infinitude. In the vastness of the night, there was some dim movement, not very visible, of this earth being, earth existence. Now, after describing the whole fields and the species of earth, and earth in the figure of a priestess of the mysteries, he comes back to the Princess Savitri and says, august, exulting in her Maker's eye, she felt her nearness to him in earth's breast. Savitri, even as she is proceeding, is in communion with her Maker. In that setting, there is something from her being that communes with her Maker, who exults in seeing her. And she felt her nearness to him in earth's breast. As she is close to the bosom of the earth, she feels herself close to her Maker there. Converse still with the light behind the veil. The light cannot be seen yet, but she is able to converse with that light, still communed with with eternity beyond. And as she is doing that, as she passes, a few and fit inhabitants she called to share the glad communion of her peace. She has tremendous peace, and she would like to share that peace with a few but fit inhabitants who can really share it. The breadths. Now, from here, for 3 pages, he describes the various types of spiritual achievements, realizations that have been achieved by humanity at its summits. So first come the king sages, those who were kings, and after fulfilling their obligations and duties to the world, society, they have become hermits, and they are on a different quest. He says, the breadths and summit were the natural home of the few inhabitants she called. The strong king sages from their labor done, what we call Rajarshis, who are kings have become sages. They have finished their labor, discharged their duties of royalty. The strong king sages from their labor done, freed from the warrior tension of their task. Naturally, as long as they were carrying out the mission of the warrior, the Kshatriyas, there was tension, warrior tension, and now they are freed from it. They came to her serene sessions in these wild forest spaces, serene sessions when she called people to sit with her. These king sages arrived. The strife was over. The period of their strife in life was over. The respite lay in front. The period of rest, withdrawal, spread in their front. Happy they lived with birds and beasts and flowers. These retired kings, happy they lived with birds and beasts and flowers, and sunlight and the rustle of the leaves, and heard the wild winds wandering in the night. At night, when the wild winds go from place to place, they make a weird sound. Mused with the stars in their mute, constant ranks, the stars there twinkle, but constant, they are always in that place. And these king sages look at the stars and think, muse, contemplate on them. Mused with the stars in their mute, constant ranks, and lodged in the mornings as in azure tents. And after the night was over, when they communed with the stars, they found themselves in the mornings as in blue, azure means blue tents. The blue sky was lit up and that became a tent. That means they were living in the open. And lodged in the mornings as in azure tents, and with the glory of the noons were one. As the day advances, they fuse themselves with the glory of the noons. That is, they derive happiness, felicity from every part of the day. If some of the king sages did this, some deeper plunged. Some were satisfied with communing with nature, participating in the movements of hospitable nature, but some deeper plunged from life's external clasp, beckoned into fiery privacy. They loosed themselves, released themselves from the external clasp of life, and they were called into the fiery privacy, burning with aspiration in the soul's unassailed star-white recess. They were called into the chamber of the soul, which was star-white, pure. Recess means place of rest. They sojourned with an ever-living bliss. They went deep inside in their soul and lived in that ever-living, vibrant bliss. And what did they do? They didn't go to sleep there. A voice profound in the ecstasy and the hush, they heard. These sages, king sages, who have plunged into the depths of the soul, they hear a great voice, a mighty voice, profound in the ecstasy. You can't analyze that ecstasy, which vibrates in that voice, and in that hush, silence, they hear it, beheld an all-revealing light. Within themselves, they see a light which reveals the truth of everything. All time-made difference they overcame. Past, present, future was one to them. The world was fibered with their own heartstrings. A beautiful line. The world was fibered with their own heartstrings. That is, they identified themselves so much with the world that their own heartstrings became the stuff of which the whole world was woven. The world was fibered with their own heartstrings, close drawn to the heart that beats in every breast. That is, they are drawn to every person, drawn to the heart in each person. And through each person, they reached the one self in all through boundless love. Love was the gate, love was the means by which they reached the self, one self, pervading all. Attuned to silence and to the world rhyme, there is a rhythm in which the world moves. So these king sages are attuned to both the silence and to the world rhythm. They loosen the knot of the imprisoning mind. The mind always imprisons, limits you. So, attuned as they were to silence and to the rhythm of the world, they are able to loosen the knot of the imprisoning mind. Achieved was the wide, untroubled witness gaze. So, once the oppressive hold of mind is loosened, the untroubled witness gaze from behind, that becomes possible. Unsealed was nature's great spiritual eye. not veiled by external sight. The inner eye of nature is unsealed. To the height of heights rose now their daily climb. Each day, these king sages are making an effort to climb up and up and to the height of heights, higher and higher. They rose now in their daily climb. Their effort continues every day. Truth leaned to them from her supernal realm. It is not a one-way traffic. As they climb higher and higher, from above, truth leans, bends over them from her supernal realm, from her truth, from her supernatural domain. Above them blazed eternity's mystic suns. They are able to see the spiritual, the mystic suns of eternity, not the physical sun which anybody can see. Nameless. Now, thus far about the king sages. Next category, nameless, the austere ascetics without home. Now comes the category of austere ascetics who don't own anything, who reject everything. They have no home. What do? Nameless, they don't even carry a name. They abolish everything. Nameless, the austere ascetics without home, abandoning speech and motion and desire, these three things they abandon, aloof from creatures. The king sages had fibered the world with their own heartstrings, they were one with the world. Now these austere ascetics, aloof from creatures, sat absorbed, alone, immaculate in tranquil heights of self. They were doing tapas, austerities, pure, untouched, on the tranquil, peaceful heights of self, unconcerned with the world and its creatures, on concentration's luminous, voiceless peaks, world-naked hermits with their matted hair. You know, these ascetics, they tie their hair matted like a pyramid. So he says, world-naked, they had denuded themselves of all worldly interests. They were true sannyasis. World-naked hermits with their matted hair, immobile as the passionless great hills. Around them are the great hills which don't move. They have no movement, they have no passion. Now these hermits are immobile, unmoving as the passionless great hills, around them grouped like thoughts of some vast mood. Now this is a poetic image. The hills which are everywhere, he likens them to thoughts of some vast mood. Each hill is a thought. There is something vast, some vast being in a mood of contemplation, and each thought of that is stationed as a hill. Now these world-naked hermits are sitting like that, like the hills around them, passionless, immobile. And what are they waiting for? Awaiting the infinite's behest to end. They are waiting for the order of the infinite being to cancel themselves, to eliminate themselves. Then the third category, the seers, attuned to the universal will. They have no personal will of their own. They attune themselves to the universal will, content in Him who smiles behind earth's forms. All the forms of the earth are like veils. Behind them there is somebody who smiles at everything. And these seers who have attuned their will to His will, they are content, trustful in Him, abode ungrieved by the insistent days. The pressure of the days, the compulsions of time, they are not bothered because their will is attuned to the universal will and they are content in the smile of the Lord. So they don't bother about the pressures of time. About them, now here is a slight humor. About these seers who are living ungrieved, about them like green trees girdling a hill, around a hill just as there are green trees, young grave disciples fashioned by their touch. Around these people there are disciples, and they are young, and they are grave. The masters are not grave, but the disciples are grave. We all were like that in the first years of the ashram. We were more grave and more serious than mother, and mother had to cut jokes and make us laugh, smile. I remember those days when I read, young, grave disciples fashioned by their touch, by the touch of the masters, trained to the simple act and conscious word. These disciples were trained to act simply without complications, without reservations. What is to be done is done. And conscious word. Each word uttered had to be conscious. Greatened within, these disciples greatened within, not outside. They didn't put on airs, but they grew inside. Their consciousness, their being inside grew by the very fact that they were living around their masters and they were being fashioned by their touch. Young, grave disciples fashioned by their touch, trained to the simple act and conscious word, greatened within and grew to meet their heights, their own heights. Each seeker has to scale his own being. His own heights have to be reached. And these young disciples greatened within and grew to meet their heights. I think we should stop there before we come to the next category.